tracks.
In this episode, I'm going to give you my prediction of Daniel Jacobs versus Triple G. Welcome to the DO Boxing Show. I'm your host, Dameon Okposio. Thanks for tuning into another episode. We're about to take part in watching one of the biggest fights. We just got through with Lemieux versus Curtis Stevens, which was an amazing fight. There was fireworks, and if you didn't think that there could be more, there's going to be more. In the middleweight division, Daniel Jacobs and Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, are going to be going head-to-head this weekend, March 18th, and I believe it's going to be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. I wish I could be there, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. But I am going to be giving you my prediction and who I think is going to win this fight. It is a great fight between the two top guys in this division, and you know, the middleweight division is full of a lot of great fighters. When you're looking at Gennady Golovkin, Daniel Jacobs, they're the perfect test for each other at the right time, and they both have a lot of similar attributes. So Daniel Jacobs has a slight edge in age, because I believe Gennady Golovkin's 34 and Daniel Jacobs is 30, so he's a little bit younger. Daniel Jacobs may have a height advantage because he might just be, I think he's 6 foot, so he might be just a tad taller than Gennady Golovkin. But they're going to be coming in around the same weight, which is going to be significant. Daniel Jacobs is not somebody that is working his way up, so the size advantage that Gennady Golovkin has always enjoyed against a lot of his opponents coming up, because a lot of times they were smaller guys, he is now going to be facing someone around the same size as him. He did it also with David Lemieux. He faced somebody around the same size as him, but Daniel Jacobs brings a different kind of style set than David Lemieux does. So I'm going to break down the fight, and then I'm going to give you my prediction based on some of the things that I'm seeing. So there's a couple of things that we're telling. One is Gennady Golovkin showed in numerous fights that he has boxing ability, and he's usually the fighter. That's why a lot of people say he fights in a Mexican style, because usually he plants his feet and lets his hands go. But in the David Lemieux fight, you could tell that he respected David Lemieux's power, and he threw a lot of jabs. He used a lot of movement in terms of his feet. He's good with angles. But one of the things that I see that I'm critical about Gennady Golovkin is he doesn't move his head. He doesn't slip his head. He doesn't slip a lot. He doesn't move his head a lot. He relies on his great footwork, his excellent conditioning to put himself on angles all the time, and he's quick with his feet. He can move in and out of danger, or put himself in good position to punch, and he's always kind of hunting his opponent, and he's very good at cutting off the ring. With Daniel Jacobs is very good at moving. So Daniel Jacobs is a very athletic guy, and maybe the most athletic guy that Gennady Golovkin has faced. You know, I'd put his movement up there along with somebody like Willie Monroe. But the difference with Daniel Jacobs is he is like a mixture of Willie Monroe and David Lemieux, because Daniel Jacobs does possess that one-punch knockout power. My knock on Daniel Jacobs is he has shown that he could be knocked down and knocked out. that happened against Dmitry Pirog when they fought for the WBO title, WBO middleweight title. He can be hit, but so can Gennady Golovkin. And the one thing I don't like about Daniel Jacobs, or something that I'll critique him about, is that sometimes he gets wild and his punches look like they're slaps as opposed to accurate punching. I will give that edge in terms of accurate punches thrown to Gennady Golovkin. He turns over all of his punches extremely well. He's very accurate in terms of when he does throw, and that's part of him putting his feet in the right position. The one thing I will say about Daniel Jacobs with his chin is he's only been down once. He's only lost once, and his one loss was to a Russian fighter with kind of like Gennady Golovkin style, except Dmitry Pirog was I say Golovkin-like, but with a lot of movement. Almost mirrored Daniel Jacobs in ability. I'm talking about Pirog now. Pirog is a Russian fighter that fights with an American rhythm. He moves his head. He comes in on a lot of different angles and possesses a punch. And literally up until that time, Daniel Jacobs was taking Pirog's punch extremely well. I think he got stopped in the 7th round, and I think it was after he threw a lazy jab, Pirog countered over top with a counter right. I don't think that Daniel Jacobs is going to get that sloppy in a fight with Gennady Golovkin. I think he's going to be super focused the entire fight. I think he's going to bring the fight to Gennady Golovkin and going to be able to move. Gennady Golovkin can also be hit, and it's going to be interesting to see how he puts up or sustains himself against Jacobs' power if he gets hit on a continuous basis by a full-on middleweight. That's going to be very interesting to see how Gennady Golovkin takes that. It's gonna be a good fight. I give the edge in footwork to Daniel Jacobs. I'm gonna give the edge in power to Gennady Golovkin. He is gonna hit Jacobs. I think Jacobs is gonna have some problems and some scary moments throughout the fight. But even with Daniel Jacobs' loss to Dmitry Pirog, his only loss, that was back in 2010. He went through his ordeal with cancer with his spine in 2012. He overcame that. He wasn't supposed to walk again. He wasn't supposed to box again. And he came back and he became a champion. And in his fights after post-cancer, post-surgery, he's been very focused. He's been very determined in fights. He's been very willing to stand in the pocket and exchange. And you're seeing a little bit more of an aggressive Daniel Jacobs. There's a couple other things that made a difference. I think in terms of training camp, I think it was business as usual in the Gennady Golovkin camp, and there's nothing wrong with that. Gennady Golovkin is a consummate professional, and he prepares excellent every single time. He's never out of shape. But what I think is going to make a difference, and this is where some of the intangibles are going to come into play, is Daniel Jacobs, again, post-cancer. He has a lot more drive. He has a lot more experience overcoming. And one thing I liked about this camp is he surrounded himself with the best. You know, he stayed with the same trainer, but they trained at Virgil Hunter's gym. You know, that's the home of Andre Ward. You know, and I don't think Virgil Hunter was taking part in the camp, but you know, when you're around where guys are extremely focused and things are going a certain way or people are training in a certain way, it rubs off. They said they had a good camp. One of the other things I will say is nutrition plays a huge part, especially in endurance and you know, Chris Algieri was doing his nutrition. Algieri is a guy that's known for tremendous conditioning in his fights because Algieri is not known to be a hard puncher, so his fights usually go the distance. He was providing nutrition for Daniel Jacobs, and I think that is a key thing as well because, you know, this guy is not just a nutritionist or not just a personal chef, but somebody who's fought at the elite level. So I think that, and normally Daniel Jacobs doesn't leave his family and go away to camp, and this time he did. So there's a number of factors that are making me lean towards a Daniel Jacobs upset victory on Saturday against Gennady Golovkin. And no matter who wins this fight, they're both going to be looked at still the best in the middleweight division. But I do think that I think it's going to be a surprise. I think Daniel Jacobs is going to have some scary moments in the fights, but I think he's ultimately going to pull it out. I look at it as a decision victory by Daniel Jacobs. I think it's very possible. Any of these fighters could get stopped, so it could end by knockout on either end. But my prediction is a Daniel Jacobs upset victory over Gennady Golovkin, and it's going to go to the scorecards. It's going to be an interesting one to see. Let me know your comments. Let me know what you think, and we're going to have fun watching it on Saturday. Remember, you can ask us any questions related to boxing by sending us a message through Twitter at DOKPOSIO, through email at okposio@hotmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe through YouTube by going to Dameon Okposio to get every episode of the DO Boxing Show. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.